So there's a little something called world building. And I realized yesterday when I looked through a lot of the projects that I've had on the back burner that need to be worked through and developed, I realized how much world building and creativity was involved in bringing those things to life. And I love tackling that, so it's one of my favorite things to do. So I don't have plans to spend too much time making videos or anything like that today. But in the spirit of doing and talking about world building and creativity, I'm kind of looking like I I look at today's kind of like projects and things like that, and how much they just lack creativity and how much we just seem to be losing that art of creativity. And like for me, the creativity and the world building is incredibly important because if you know your characters and you know your world, you can create a story, out of anything. Like it's like creating an internal map. And, I'm reminded of J.R.R. Tolkien, where, there were reports that it's like he knew every corner of Middle Earth kind of thing. And, perhaps that's kind of like one of the things that's always inspired me because when I think about a lot of the worlds that I create, it's sort of like that same aspect that no matter where, in the world, especially of my bigger fantasy trilogy, like no matter where on the map I look, there's always that aspect of knowing sort of like the history of that place and what's going on in that place, whether or not it involves or whether or not it gets told in the story or not, because you know people don't understand that a lot of times you have to have so much information separate because you don't know, like if you don't know where your story is going, you have to know, like, a good rule of thumb is to kind of know like the past and future aspect, and a lot of times that helps to inform kind of like your main story. And that could just be me, because I could just be just that crazy about world building, but I do think that the more that you know and understand about what it is that you're creating, the better understanding you have of the story that you're telling. Now, everything doesn't have to be, super epic. Like I look at my own work and I don't think that anything I do is, super epic, because it's like I kind of like things more straightforward, sort of like the graphic novel Huck that I did a review of earlier, where it is a nice, like it is a nice world building, but the story itself is relatively simple, and I kind of like things like that. So I don't do the kind of Donny Cates and Scott Snyder thing where they want everything to be super epic and everything has always been like, in the plans and works for like thousands of years before, and this super epic kind of thing. And like that it's not always necessary to tell a story. You can do simple. But I look at today, like I look at all the work that I'm doing for my stories that I have been doing for, at this point, decades now. And I look at like a lot of the stuff today, and I'm thinking Doctor Who, and what I'm seeing of the Star Trek, and even like the Disney Star Wars kind of thing. And I'm looking at all the rebooting and the move from animation to live action that Disney is doing. And I'm looking at like this, where what Evil Hat Productions is doing. And, Nerdrotic says that everything right now just seems to be full of repurposers. And I agree with him, because I look at, Evil Hat Productions, and the Fate of Cthulhu, where you're doing Fate of Cthulhu based off of H.P. Lovecraft's work. So you don't have to put your own creativity and imagination in it. You just have to take his and reimagine it from your current lens today. And then that allows you to then go back and, possibly malign H.P. Lovecraft's name because you want everyone to know that he himself, according to you, was a garbage human being. And, we're still taking his property, and you're not supposed to question why we're taking his property. Just understand we're doing it because we want to make a profit, but he was a garbage human being, and now we're mad that people are pointing out that. Then why are you doing this product? like I read the article, and I still maintain that just insulting people for pointing out a valid criticism is not really a good way to sell a product. And isolating people away from a product, because the reality is you chose to do a product based on work from someone that you don't like. I think people should have that question. People should ask, and you should have an answer. And it shouldn't be, let me name call you so that I can put you immediately on the defense. But I realize that that's just what they're going to do. So other than that, I'm not really interested in Fate of Cthulhu. I've not read H.P. Lovecraft's work. I'm not really into sci-fi or anything like that, but I do find it interesting. When people do that, especially when leftists do that, because you tell us we cannot separate the art from the artist when it's certain people, but if it's something that you feel like you can use, because I remember they've said the same thing about J.R.R. Tolkien, where they've called him all kinds of, being a garbage human being as well. And so it's sort of like, it's the hypocrisy anyway, but it's the idea of, you want to take what you want and use it while trying to destroy the person who created it, because you want to take their creation and repurpose it for your own intentions. And, I wasn't fully interested enough in Fate of Cthulhu to feel like I wanted to do a whole article on just that alone, other than the fact of you must lack such creativity that you had to take someone else's work and create a RPG game based around it, and now you just want to malign that person's name and insult people who have valid questions. That literally is just what they're doing. But I went on CBR, and then I saw that apparently they're talking about rebooting Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Now, I remember watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and, it was a fine enough movie as a kid at that time, but I don't understand why it would need a reboot. But looking at the history of current Disney, rebooting is all that they do. And it literally is all that they do. They lack such creativity now that, you really aren't getting anything worthwhile out of them. And that really is kind of leading to the greater problem, because you have people like me who, I put such hard work into what I do. And for me, I don't begrudge anybody else their success. My goal is to do the work that I do, and if it becomes successful, that's great. But, certainly the goal is to work toward it. But I don't believe that, okay, my phone. Essentially, I'm not going to put aside my integrity in order to take something from someone else and repurpose it. I'd rather create my own, unless I was doing like, unless I was working at like DC. Now, of course, they wouldn't let me work there even if I am a black female, but I'm not the right kind of black female, like on a Superman, like, because maybe that's my point. These people nowadays don't understand that when you're taking a property that's already established, you have now become a steward of it. It's not a property that you own. You can't just do what you want with it. You have to be good to it. You have to understand what came before. You have to understand the world for what the creator of it created. You can't then read in your own kind of understanding. And we have really kind of lost that nowadays, because everything is sort of like, everything is sort of based around this idea of, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to take someone else's work and I'm going to repurpose it based on my current politics, current understanding of the world. And if people complain, well, you're not complaining because I lack creativity. You're complaining because I'm going to just insert name that I would like to call you in the hopes of shutting you up. And like I talked about with Birds of Prey, how you can tell a studio doesn't trust their product because they just drum up drama in the hopes that that drama will sell tickets. And this is kind of like the same thing that Evil Hat is doing. You're trying to drum up controversy. You're trying to drum up drama in the hopes that you will sell more of these RPG books. And, like I still like I've been watching some drama videos because I'm not interested in drama, but I'm a thinker, and so like I like to be aware of drama when it happens, and I like to pick apart problems, because like my thing is always like, how do we get to, like, how did the situation get to the point that it got to? And like that's just in my nature to want to pick things like that apart. And I look at this and I keep asking myself, how is it that the same marketing technique that they use that has such a high failure rate, like why do they keep relying on this in order to try to sell more product? It hasn't worked, and because, I mean, think about it. Terminator Dark Fate, the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot, Charlie's Angels reboot, what happened with the Star Wars and, and Solo and all of that. Like this thing that they're doing has not been working for years, and yet they insist on doing it. And I know because they believe that they're going to create this new market. That just does not happen, because the market you want are people who still will not buy your product because they'd rather you give it to them for free. And like I'm not going to spend too much time speculating on it, because like that could take me forever to do it, because it's and I do believe that sometimes there is a particular brand of insanity that just cannot be understood, and this might be one of them, because like I look at it, and I still look at Marvel and DC, and I think to myself, how much money do you have to lose before you understand that you probably are headed in the wrong direction? Like same thing with a lot of these Hollywood studios. How much money do you have to lose before you understand that you might be headed in the wrong direction, that you might need to stop hiring the kind of people that you are hiring, kind of thing? And like the more this goes on, it's like the more that it just keeps boggling my mind, because people should want things to be a success. People should want things to be a competition. People should want to put their best foot forward, and yet we seem to not be moving in that direction. And like, I know I have my problems with progressivism because it inevitably pulls everything back and it keeps creativity from moving forward. And yeah, maybe perhaps that's the thing. Like, to them, you know, because they're so about what they consider progress, which really isn't progress at all. Like, they're just not gonna, like, they're just, I don't know. I don't know. It's a problem for another day. But anyway, those are kind of like just two interesting things that kind of happened, and just really kind of interested me enough that I had to make at least a little bit of a video about it, even if it ends with me just not even, like, still just not understanding how insulting people is considered now a marketing tactic, because it's such a bad one. Anyway, if you like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do the bell stuff for notifications, share, do all of that, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.